guess where in the world I am today? From the looks of my background, I'm no longer in my bedroom in the UK. Yep, that's right. I've finally made it to Grenada in the Caribbean after probably about 12 months of trying. In this video, it's going to be a short one, just talking you through the processes of actually getting from the UK to Grenada. Still kind of in the middle of a pandemic. It's long, but definitely worth it. So stay tuned and I'll give you the breakdown of all the processes I had to go through to get myself and my family to the Spice Isle. In order to travel to Grenada, they require you to have travel insurance that covers you in the event of catching COVID. Now, while you can find many options for regular travel insurance on offer, you really need to make sure that you drill down into the details of the policy on offer to make sure that the level of coverage is sufficient enough. To add another level of complication, it's not just me traveling, it's myself and my 3 kids. So travel insurance for families was something that I had to make sure that I looked into. And on top of that, being based in Grenada, I was really hoping to be able to hop from island to island whenever life here got a bit too much. Popping over to St Vincent or St Lucia really was on my wish list. But the costs of having annual insurance for multi-trips was just so high that in the end what I ended up going for was single trip insurance for a family with coverage for COVID that was fairly affordable, and if the ins and outs of travel insurance for remote workers or for people with families traveling to the Caribbean is something that's of interest, definitely drop me a note in the comments. Is applying for permission to travel. So the days in which you can just hop on a plane and arrive in a country for now seems to be well and truly behind you. In terms of getting to Grenada, you need permission from the government, which requires you to apply online in advance with all of your details, your passport details, date of birth, residency, details of your trip, where you'll be staying. All of that information you have to provide in advance. Now, for me, as someone who likes security and peace of mind and who knew that I absolutely was not going to have this trip turned down, I decided to apply in advance. So probably 3 or 4 weeks in advance, because I just wanted to know for sure that I was going to be able to make it. I sent off my application for myself and my kids. It probably took me about close to an hour to complete, because a lot of the information you have to do again and again and again and again and again for each person traveling. But I sent it off and I paid my money, which was 400 EC, which is about £120 per person, so not an insignificant amount of money. And I sent it off and I waited and I heard nothing back. So I sent an email saying, hey folks, I'm traveling to Grenada. What's happening with my permission to travel? Still no word back at all. And it wasn't until probably about 48 hours before my original flight that I sent another email saying, guys, I need to travel. What's going on? That I got an email not responding to any of my requests for information, but an email just saying, you have permission to travel. Here's your details. Make sure to hand it in at the airport. So for those of you who have anxiety, who want peace of mind, be aware that the process of getting the confirmation from Grenada might not be as straightforward or as quick as you would hope. As I was going to be traveling through Barbados, I also needed to apply for permission to travel to Barbados for 4 people, myself, my 2 girls and my son. So just in case you're not aware, prep and admin for getting ready for your flight to Grenada is probably going to take you quite a lot of time. So perhaps just set a day in the weekend aside for filling in forms, filling in online applications and printing, because yeah, that's quite time consuming. But luckily, the process of applying to Barbados is much less complicated. The form is fairly straightforward. You fill everything online. For this one, I didn't need to pay for a PCR test, as I already was going to be getting that done in Grenada, and I was only in transit there. But yeah, filled in all the information, and within moments was sent a QR code that I needed to print off and to use when traveling. So the Barbados one was definitely pretty straightforward. So after permission to travel. Next thing was PCR tests. So to fly to Grenada, to be allowed to enter, everyone over the age of 5 needs to have a PCR test. And not just any PCR test, a PCR test completed no more than 72 hours before the time that you land, not depart, but you land in Grenada. Now, please, 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 the number of people that I saw being disappointed, being frustrated by understanding that their PCR test was not valid was really, it was a lot. So if you're not aware of that, please make sure to calculate the time frame within which you need to get your PCR test done in your country of departure compared to when you'll actually be touching down on the island. And it's a similar case in Barbados too. I saw a number of people, one elderly gentleman being told that his PCR test wouldn't be accepted and he'd have to have it taken again. So yeah, that was pretty sad. But luckily we were okay. We got ours done in London at a drive-through at Heathrow. That was one of the cheapest going, but just because I had to pay for 3, like paying over £100 for each one, just wasn't really something that I was up for. We got them done at about 9:30 on Tuesday morning and had the results before 5 p.m. the next day. So that was fantastic. So that was a PCR test. Get your PCR test done before departure. The next thing that we had to complete after permission to travel, after the PCR test, after the insurance, is there's this app called Verifly that you're supposed to use to upload every single piece of data to before arriving at the airport. So you download the app on your phone, you upload your permission to travel to Barbados, you upload your passport data, you upload your flight information, and in theory you upload the results. Now you also upload the results of your PCR test and in theory details of your vaccination if you've had one. I have, but there was nowhere for me to add this information, so I arrived at the airport not knowing, is this going to be okay, am I going to be allowed to travel, but it didn't seem to be a problem. So that was the next step that I had to complete. On the day, I had a little glitch with BA. To be honest, I love BA for some reason. Everyone else seems to love Virgin Atlantic, but I'm a kind of an old school person, so I had a lot of love for British Airways. But after the experience of the past 13 months, 13 months, I'm definitely rethinking that love that I had. Got to the airport, got to add an additional bag for my kids, only to find that they had removed all of the luggage allowance for my 3 children. Now I'm moving to Grenada. This stint, I'm here for quite multiple months, to find out that I was supposed to arrive with just hand luggage. That absolutely wasn't going to work, so I spent a good few hours going around in circles. Got to the airport the day before, because of COVID, I was told that I actually needed to check in. I was flying on the Friday. I was told to check in my luggage on the Thursday because of staff shortages. There's no guarantee that I'll be able to get through the airport in time. So we had to schlep all of our stuff to the airport to check it in, then be asked to pay for the luggage that I had already paid for my children again. This led to a 2-hour back and forth with the ground staff or the management people. They managed to come up with a deal, blah, blah, blah. This is getting rather long, so I'm going to skip through. We made our flight. So we got through to Barbados, only to find that the luggage that was supposed to be going from Heathrow all the way to Grenada was actually on the carousel in Barbados, and the only way to get it there was to transport it ourselves. So me, a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old had to find the way to get 9 pieces of luggage to the departure gate. So that was fun. Luckily, we were able to rope in some help from someone with a trolley, and then got to the check-in desk for Inter-Caribbean, which is a tiny little aircraft that takes you to Grenada, only to be told that I would have to pay again for the baggage that I had paid for in Grenada. So I had paid £80 for this bag in Heathrow, And in Barbados, I was made to pay $60 US again for the same bag to get to Grenada. At this point, reason you know would sit there and talk and discuss, is this fair? But you know what? I was so knackered, so tired. All I wanted to do was get on the goddamn flight. So I was like, listen, swipe my card, take it, whatever we have to do, let's get on. At this point, there's probably about 15 minutes until our flight was supposed to depart. I was like, mate, I'm not staying in Barbados. So we were literally running through the airport with the kids, sweating, pulling hand baggage behind them, like the 4-year-old, like crying. I'm like, listen, stop crying. We've got to make this flight. I get to the departure gate and I realize, of course, I'm in the Caribbean. Nothing departs on time. So the flight is sitting there. No one's even opened the doors. There's no sign of anyone getting on the plane. So yeah. That was a lesson to remember to adjust and chill out, because in the Caribbean things happen a little more slowly. So we got from Barbados to St Vincent, had to wait a while in St Vincent for folks to get off the plane because the ground staff didn't want to come out because it was raining. Stuff doesn't happen in the rain, so that was a bit of a delay. And then finally got to Grenada. I don't even know what time it was dark. Had to have our second PCR test done then. And that was pretty punchy compared to the experience in the UK, where they have like a cotton bud that they gently scrape around your nose and a separate one in your mouth. The PCR test in Grenada is like this stick that has a tiny dusting of covering in it that they literally scrape in your nose. My son wasn't at all pleased and literally battered the woman's hand away a few times, so that didn't go down well, but luckily she got the results that she needed. We then made it home in the approved taxi, because you're not allowed to take any taxi from the airport to your house or to your hotel. It has to be an approved taxi. Luckily, our one wasn't much more expensive than it would have been in normal circumstances. So yeah, we got home. And then had to wait and see what the results of our test were. And once you get the test results, that's when you're allowed to leave. Now, up until a few days before we departed, the standard protocol was that quarantine in Grenada for someone flying who was vaccinated but with children who were unvaccinated is that you have to spend 7 days, up to 7 days in quarantine, which is something that I absolutely was not looking forward to. Luck would have it that they amended those details and reduced it to 48 hours for those who are fully jammed with kids. So yeah, I was sat there waiting, wondering when we would get the results. Would they email? Would they call? Would they text? Had no idea. At about 9 p.m. on the Saturday, I got a call from my uncle, because I'd given his number because I wanted to give a local Grenadian number, saying that I needed to call someone at the Department of Health. And called him, and we needed to provide some information, children's date of birth and passport numbers, because ideally he wanted to speak to them, but because it was the middle of the night, they were fast asleep and there was no way in hell that I was waking them up to be kept up again all night. Gave that information and he said, fine, you're free to go. So in under 24 hours, or just over 24 hours, we had permission to leave and be free and be able to experience the island. So that was pretty amazing. I definitely can't guarantee that it will take you 24 hours. From what I've heard, generally it's quite lucky if you are out in 48, but that's my experience. I thought I would share it. And yeah, this is probably not the most slick video that you've seen, but I realized that it's been a while since I've posted something and just wanted to prove that I've made it out of my bedroom. I'm actually using a mango tree as my tripod because I'm still unpacking. But yeah, hopefully the sound of the ruffling leaves haven't been too much. And yeah, it's a long as hell explanation, but going through it in person was far more intense and traumatic. And what advice would I give to someone else looking to make the move? If you can put it off. But if you're desperate to get out, as I was, I would do it again in a heartbeat. It wasn't fun. It wasn't pretty. There were lots of tears along the way, but I'm here now. I'm out and I'm free. And we'll see what happens next. So that's it from me. Looking forward to sharing more videos with you about the process, the ins and outs of setting up here, talking to people who've also made the move. But yeah, now the fun begins. No more or fewer Zoom calls in a bedroom, and actually let's be out and understand how Grenada works. And yeah, hopefully I can tempt some of you to come out here too, because it really is quite spectacular. If you have any questions, drop them below in the comments. But thanks for watching, and look forward to catching up with you soon. Take care.